This episode of the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk podcast is brought to you by Loctite's Tight Foam. The best builders take weatherization seriously. When they need to seal a gap that's too small for insulation but big enough to create a draft, they reach for Loctite's Tight Foam. With 3 formulations for everything from small cracks to the biggest gaps, there's a tight foam product for every job, including a low expanding product designed to seal the rough opening around windows and doors. The high-density foam forms a tenacious bond to most common building materials, stays flexible to prevent cracking when materials move, and keeps air, moisture, and pests out of the house. Builders who care about energy efficiency, comfort, and durability choose Tight Foam. Visit LoctiteProducts.com for more information. So, what financial data should a business owner who was on top of things know within a few keystrokes at any time?
I would say how much money they have, how much money they owe, how much money is due to them. I would say those are the most important ones.
Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk podcast, our regular discussion with building industry professionals. This is Senior Editor Patrick McComb. Today I'm joined by Tara Johnson, owner of North Bay Bookkeeping Services. You can find the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk podcast and the original Fine Homebuilding podcast at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. You can leave questions and you can leave feedback and ask questions there too. Tara, thanks so much for being on the show. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
So my friend and FHB contributor Andy Steele introduced us because he is one of your clients. Can you please tell me about your business?
Sure. My bookkeeping business primarily serves contractors, small construction firms throughout the country. I have clients on, from West Coast to East Coast, and I help them work for them 100% remotely.
You mentioned, or Andy mentioned to me that you grew up in a contractor's family. Can you tell me about that?
Sure. My parents started Interstate Door back in the late 70s, and it was just almost like another child at the dinner table where we talked about business. It was just another, maybe we weren't in the conversation so much, but it was surrounded us. My mom worked at the kitchen table and then, initially, and then, moved into an office, but it was always around us.
And how do you think that affects your ability to be a good bookkeeper for contractor clients?
I think just understanding how contractors don't just clock in and clock out at, bankers' hours. It is, unfortunately, it's sometimes, a 24/7 job, because you're wearing so many hats that it can just bleed into your home life, and I understand that.
Can you briefly explain what the difference is between an accountant and a bookkeeper, and are the roles similar enough that they're interchangeable, or do they have different jobs?
I think it depends on almost like what part of the country you're in, whether, you refer to an accountant as a bookkeeper or your accountant is your tax preparer. It's kind of it depends what you're really talking about. So for me, a bookkeeper is somebody who records all of the financial transactions of a business, then step that up to an accountant who can look at those transactions and interpret them and tell you what they mean and how they impact the financials, the business, and, how to make changes. And then there's the tax preparer who takes that information and prepares the tax returns.
Can I guess that you're not only just managing your clients' finances, business finances, but you're also helping keep them out of financial trouble, is my guess, right?
To the best of my ability. Where I can't control what they do with their money, but we talk about it. I help educate my clients on how those decisions they make impact the business. For instance, if the contractor takes a large deposit on an upcoming project, it's not their money, and it's not the business's money until the project begins, until materials are secured. um, and it's not the time to go buy a boat. It's not their money.
Have you had clients do silly stuff like that?
Yes, I have. It happens, where they use the business checkbook as their own personal funds, and just make bad decisions, and get themselves in trouble.
I remember for a period of my life, I sold millwork and building materials. And when you can't pay your suppliers, you have a big problem with your business because you can't work on projects, right?
You get cut off.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I'm guessing you're trying to help prevent those things from happening.
I do. I really do. Just getting in the mindset that it's not their money until the project is done, that they have a responsibility to the homeowner, to follow through, and to do it effectively. And I think it's bad habits are hard to break, but baby steps.
My guess is that, maybe young or new contractors try that once and then hopefully learn from it.
We hope. We hope.
I suspect that the bookkeeping services vary by what your clients are paying for. Can you please talk about, let's call it, degrees of management and oversight that are offered by people like yourself?
Sure. So, kind of like what I said earlier, it's just, bookkeepers can focus on just getting the transactions in the accounting software. They can do bank reconciliations, but then there's the step above that really interprets what those numbers mean and the story that they're telling. So that's a big difference. Just being able to translate what those numbers mean, and then working with a tax preparer, and taking that off of the business owner, who never wants to get a call from their accountant, tax preparer, asking for, like, what do these numbers mean, what's behind them. And I take on those conversations if my client wants.
And is that pretty typical, or do those types of services vary by individual bookkeeper or financial person?
They do vary. And they do. Some bookkeepers don't have the ability to interpret those, what those numbers mean. And there's, you can get a bookkeeper, in the Philippines for $5 an hour, but they might not really understand how those transactions should be coded to the particular business or to that industry, and what those numbers mean. And so if you pair, or if you are working with a professional bookkeeper, it's worth it. It's worth it if you need that education, that support, and that's what I offer my clients.
I can guess that your clients come to you with all kinds of different systems, some good, some bad. Do you have to integrate their methods into the way you want to do things, or do you get them on board with how you want to do things?
It really depends. If the systems that my client already has in place, if they work and if they make sense, then I try and be flexible and adapt to them. If their systems just aren't really functional, and then we adopt. And I try and not make like any crazy changes. And I also offer like flexibility if they like Dropbox instead of Google Drive or something like that. It's just like, that's fine. That's, I want to make sure that that it's easy for them and doesn't get them discouraged or frustrated. So it's best for them.
What about financial software? A lot of folks in the contracting business use QuickBooks. Others use suites of software to help them manage their business. Do you have a preference? Do you try and get them to use one or the other?
I prefer QuickBooks Online, and working, I was a QuickBooks desktop user for years, but as times have changed and really supporting my clients, around the country, QuickBooks Online, we can work together, we can view the same information. They can access their financial numbers in the field and do some functions that just make their lives easier. And I also love JobTread, which is working with QuickBooks Online, but JobTread has a great job costing dashboard that just really is sweet.
I'm delighted to hear you're a fan of JobPad because I have another Pro Talk guest, an attorney who's integrating some of her contract writing services into that platform, which seems pretty cool.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Glad to hear it.
Yes. Stay tuned, listeners, for that one. I'm sure this is a very big question, but do your best if you could. So what do contractors regularly get wrong about the financial side of their business?
That's I would say that really not trusting the numbers, and and really any business, it comes down to the numbers for your, to manage your finances, to look at how you're doing on a project. I mean, so many contractors are just like, well, I price by my gut. I know how, many sticks I need to, build this house or whatever. That's great, but it comes down to the numbers, fluctuating costs. How do you know that you're, getting what you deserve at the end of the project? So yeah, does that answer your question?
It's what I suspected is that they're relying on intuition or experience instead of doing job costing and tracking.
Yeah, it's for them. It's easier. They just don't want to, go sit at a desk and plug in those numbers and try and learn something new that just doesn't come easy for them necessarily, or just keeps them away from, running that job, because those people are screaming a lot, louder to get their project finished than that pile of receipts on your desk. And
Yeah, and I mean, I think you'd agree, like, you got to build houses in the daytime, right? Books can wait till night, or maybe you get tired and then you don't want to do that or whatever.
and it just stacks up and is overwhelming, and so they just don't want to deal with it.
Do you have any universal advice for folks who find themselves either working for a contractor or contracting, who got into the field because they didn't want to be in business or work with numbers?
Ask for help. I mean, that's just, help is there. You just need to ask for it. And you can't be great at everything. I mean, that's just not fair to the rest of us who aren't perfect at everything, and ask for help. We all need it.
How do you find the right bookkeeper or financial person to help you run your business?
You can reach out to QuickBooks, find a pro advisor. That's one way if you're using that software. And then, of course, like Xero and all this, they also have pro advisor or, professionals that they can refer to. You can ask another person in your industry, like another business owner. It's like, what are you doing? Who are you using with? How does that work? I would suggest, staying off of Craigslist and Fiverr, and for that $5 an hour, person in the Philippines, it's like, pay a professional. It is worth it. You're going to save yourself so much stress, time, headaches, taxes, like the whole thing. And if you feel like you can't afford it, then you're not charging enough to your customers. That's part of your overhead. That's part of operating your business,
I think that's so important. You need to charge enough to do a good job is what I always remind people, right? You have to be able to do the work.
And your clients want you to stay in business. If you're good at what you do, they're willing to pay more to make sure you stay in business.
You mentioned it just a little bit ago. I'm guessing that contractors get in trouble with taxes. Are helping people pay and plan for taxes part of the business services you offer?
I definitely help them plan for it and work that into the budget. Um, yeah, I didn't win lotto. I can't help them pay it, but I can help them plan for it.
Can you talk about potential tax problems that contractors sometimes have? So, being self-employed, I know you have to pay estimated tax. I think it's quarterly. I bet
Mhm.
that's a problem sometimes.
Yeah, and what what I advise them to do is talk to their tax preparer and let's create a plan. I always advise my clients, start thinking about like October, November. Let's make sure that your financials are, up to date at least through the third quarter, and then have a meeting or Zoom, sit down, whatever, with your tax preparer, and let's make some decisions before it's too late. And so that there's nothing scary that's coming your way in January, February. You have time to create a plan.
It seems like good advice. Planning is everything, right?
It is.
So, what do you like about your job? When you started thinking about a career, did you know you wanted to be a bookkeeper? Did you think about the family's contracting business?
I think I was just kind of born into it. It was, with having a family business, all of the kids were kind of who joined the business. Ha- my parents wanted almost like some diversity among us.
Yeah.
My sister was project manager. I was in the books. I had two stepbrothers. One did sales, one did project management in Washington, and so there wasn't a whole lot of overlap. And I think that's just how they envisioned it, going on to the next generation.
So, how were you trained? Were you self-taught? Did you go to school? How does one become a bookkeeper?
A mix. I learned a lot from my mom. A lot was just like kind of thrown into it and learn on the job.
Yeah.
I had, other mentors, and I constantly take education.
So, how does one have continuing ed in your field? Are there trade groups?
There are. So QuickBooks has a huge community. They offer classes, annual conferences, and there's other national organizations and whatnot that offer continuing education.
So, what financial data should a business owner who was on top of things know within a few keystrokes at any time?
I would say how much money they have, how much money is they owe, how much money is due to them. I would say those are the most
And
important ones.
are those all on one spreadsheet, or how does that work?
It can be on a spreadsheet. That spreadsheet could end up being pretty big, and it would be much easier to use your accounting software effectively to get those numbers. Yeah.
What I don't know about bookkeeping is everything. You can tell, I'm sure. Are there any obvious red flags when an owner or bookkeeper is not doing an adequate job managing their books, aside from like getting phone calls from creditors or collections letters?
I would say, the first thing I look for is incorrect balances or unusual balances on their balance sheet, the AR statement or AR aging, same with accounts payable. Sorry if I'm using bookkeeping terms.
Accounts receivable and accounts payable, right?
Right.
Yep.
So, I look at those, make sure that those at least don't have unusual balances, and we kind of start from there.
Are there any things that drive you crazy that you see often or once in a while?
Um, Boy, reconciliations that are not done. I mean, that's to me. Then there, I don't know. It's just how do you know? I don't know. Just as a bookkeeper, it's like how do you know this is right if your reconciliations aren't done? How do you know that you're not missing expenses on your job? That kind of thing. Oh, And it drives me crazy if they're paying somebody to do that. As if it's just like an owner operator who's trying to do their best, I give them a break. Like, no judgment here, but if they're paying somebody to do that, I'm not happy.
So if someone listening who's a business owner is feeling completely overwhelmed by the state of their financials, maybe they have cash flow problems or they don't know how much overhead they have, or they're having challenges with keeping payroll organized, what are the first steps to getting their financial house in order?
Ask for help. Come to somebody like me. I am happy to have a consultation with them and just talk about it. If it's working with me just isn't in their budget, I give them baby steps. It's like, okay, do this first, do this next. Reach back out to me once you've done those things. Bookkeepers are a lot like contractors. We are people who love to help, be in service, see you succeed. It's just, that's who we are in general.
Right. What are some good resources, books, websites, whatever, for contractors that that can help them do a better job managing their financial part of their business?
I'd say the first one is looking at profit first methodology, whether it's just regular profit first, the derivative profit first for contractors. That's a huge, just a great methodology for contractors. It really
Is it a
makes
book or website? What is it?
It's a book. Profit First was developed by Mike McAllowitz, and then the derivative Profit First for Contractors is Sean Van Dyke. And you can Google it. You can buy the book on Amazon. There's free resources on Profit First for Contractors on Sean's website. Those are, once you kind of get started with it, they will ensure that you are running a profitable business from day one. It sounds, kind of too simple, but it is simple. You just have to follow it,
And does it start with the very basics? I mean, I think some folks need very basic information about financial health.
It does. It's not, a bookkeeping system, but it's a profit, and almost a profit insurance system. It's just like, if you understand your numbers and, keep it simple. Yeah.
You mentioned software before, QuickBooks Online, right? And Builder Tread, right? Are there other ones that you like?
Well, JobTread is the one I'm loving right now. Yeah. Those are my favorites right now, for sure. There's others that,
What do you like about them for folks who are considering one of these platforms?
Well, with QuickBooks Online, is you can use it anywhere you have an internet connection. So that's great for people who are in the field a lot.
Sure.
You can't maybe create like huge reports using it in the field, but you can generate an invoice, a change order, take a payment from a customer. All those things that help your cash flow and your expense management. It's great. I mean, those are the hardest things. And then with JobTread, it just anything that can keep your project organized financially. That's a win. And it has just a really, for me, like a crystal clear dashboard of, your company as a whole, particular projects, all kinds of things. And it just is easy to digest.
Are there ways to pay and keep track of subcontracted labor in there too, I presume?
There is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really like a full, like holistic job costing.
So I don't know if you've listened to the show, but I always ask people about their own homes, and it's a little different for you, but do you work on your own place?
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
All the time.
Yeah.
I'm lucky I have a husband who just,
Is he
is
handy?
willing. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
sorry?
He's handy.
He is.
Yeah.
And he is just finishing up a massive chicken coop for us.
Cool.
So then what else? He'll be working on some raised beds and a fence for the garden. And that's just in this house. And then, not everybody can see it, but behind me you can see some shelves that need some love. So
Is
we've been
that
in,
it? Your office, and it looks like it's a
It is.
work in progress a little bit.
It is. We've been in this house for about a year, and it's needed lots,
Do you
lots of attention.
swing a hammer or wield a drill too?
I do when I need to. If
Yeah, cool.
yeah, yeah, it's fun. I'm not as good at it as my clients, that is for sure. But I love being able to reach out to them and say, "What would you do?" So
I'm sure they love being able to be the expert when you're helping them, right? That's pretty cool.
lucky.
It's been a pleasure talking to you. Is there anything you'd like to ask or tell our audience before we part company?
I think the only thing is if there's a contractor who is overwhelmed with running their business, ask for help. It is never as bad as you think it is, and there's always a way out.
Good advice. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Tara. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks to Tara Johnson for joining us, and thanks to all of you for listening. Please remember to send us your comments, questions, and suggestions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. And please like, comment, or review us however you're listening. It helps other folks find our podcast. Stay safe, everybody. Keep craft alive. Pay attention to your books, will you?